Militant apathy. Now that your uncle is being honest about his racist policies, this is actually a very good question. Netanyahu throws liberals under the bus. How will they defend him now? Well, this raises a good point. This is a question. Look, there's a lot of people. Somebody sent me Peter Beinart. Now, Beinart has been heading down this road for some time. But I can assure you, nobody's more, well, I don't know about that. But guys like Peter Beinart had a lot invested in Bibi Netanyahu not winning the election. And he had a piece, I don't know where this is from, actually.
I think he writes for Haaretz now.
And he's basically writes, those of us who still believe in such a state, speaking of a democratic Jewish state in Israel, alongside those of us who still believe in such a state, alongside a Palestinian one, need another way. He's talking about how the BDS movement, the boycott, divest movement, makes a lot more sense now. And he just doesn't, that's what he's arguing. And he's saying that there has to be one, he's basically calling for a BDS movement of his own, one that is seeking a two-state solution. But he says our principle should be this: support any pressure that is nonviolent and consistent with Israel's right to exist. That means backing Palestinian bids at the United Nations. That's huge.
That is huge. And
that is a reversal of decades of U.S. policy. Decades. Because, of course, Netanyahu, a week ago, less, came out and basically said, hey, you know the past 20 years of U.S. policy and negotiations and active work towards that goal? F you. Beinart goes on, it means joining and it means labeling and boycotting settlement goods. It means joining and amplifying nonviolent Palestinian protest in the West Bank. It means denying visas to and freezing assets of Naftali Bennett and other pro-settler leaders. It means pushing the Obama administration to present its own peace plan and to punish, yes, punish the Israeli government for rejecting it. It means making sure that every time Benjamin Netanyahu and the members of his cabinet walk into a Jewish event outside Israel, they see diaspora Jews protesting outside. It's Peter Beinart. Those left-wing Israeli hawks have left the building, in other words. And I don't know how accurate these reports are, but it's being reported as foreign policy. The United States is edging closer towards supporting a UN Security Council resolution that would call for the resumption of political talks to conclude a final peace settlement. This is according to Western diplomats. Shortly before this week's election, the United States informed its diplomatic partners that it would hold off any moves in the UN Security Council designed to put Israel on the spot at the United Nations in the event that Netanyahu's challenger, Isaac Herzog, won the election. But U.S. officials signaled a willingness to consider UN resolution in the event that Netanyahu was reelected and formed a coalition government opposing peace talks. The deliberations over the future U.S. diplomatic efforts are playing out just weeks before the Palestinians are scheduled to join the International Criminal Court. Now, with all this said, this is being framed as a way to head off the Palestinians joining the ICC. Because if the Palestinians join the ICC, they're going to have the ability to charge Israel or to raise the charge of Israel of crimes against humanity in that court. And that's going to be very problematic for Israeli diplomats.
Yeah.
And
You know, the only two things
officials.
that I would add about that, though, are that, I don't think, and I understand why people have different feelings about BDS, but the official position of a lot of people involved in BDS, including people who are, binational solution supporters, is really that it's nonviolent and that it's BDS. There isn't an exclusive agenda
Well, that's
about
just the point.
two-state
There's
or
no
non-
such thing as the official position.
Yeah, there's no
of
such
that.
thing
No,
as the
I agree.
and so that's number one. Number two, BDS, whether you like it or
You're
not.
taking issue with the way that Beinart
Yes.
is characterizing
Yes,
the BDS
yeah,
movement.
I'm
I
taking
agree
some
with
issue with that, and I also would say that it's a classic dynamic where if BDS wasn't so strong, and if people like Max
course.
Blumenthal weren't out there, Beinart doesn't get to be the rational center leftist.
That's right.
And number three, if you ask Palestinians, and it is important to reflect on what they want in this, you got Hamas and you got the PA, but then you have a lot of grassroots activism, which he said we should support. And all of the grassroots activism I've heard from the Palestinian territories is the most concrete way you could support us is BDS.
Absolutely.
In whatever form you want to take that in.
Absolutely.
That's the best way you could help us.
Of course. Of course. Of course. There's no, and I should also say that when you have former heads of the Israeli Mossad saying we're headed to an apartheid state, and I should say, saying that before Netanyahu comes out and says no two-state solution, and you got to go vote because other Israeli citizens who happen to be Arab are coming to the polls. The Arabs are coming. It is what it is. It is what it is. But yes, I've got to talk to my Uncle Bibi. He's just being...
I have to say, Ehud Olmert was a very far from perfect person, very problematic. But this is the last prime minister of Israel. This is, these are things he said while he was still in office and he was a guy who started on the far right and moved to the center. And he said, this was the prime minister, not just an intelligence official. He said, Israel could, quote, face a South African-style struggle for equal rights. And as soon as that happens, the state of Israel is finished, end quote. And then he said the Jewish organizations, which are our power base in America, will be the first to come out against us because they will say they cannot support a state that does not support democracy and equal voting rights for all of its residents, end quote. And in other comments, he actually has said, not totally directly, like I don't know how far he's wanted to go with it, but basically that he almost holds Sheldon Adelson like personally responsible for detonating his last government and not getting to that solution.
Not terribly surprised.
And I think he offered an even better deal than the supposedly amazing deal that the Barack did. So this is how far we've come down.